this is why I support Arsenal, this is why I go to football, because of these moments that I remember forever.
I remember you reaching out to me and
Yeah.
things like that to get me on those watch-alongs.
You know, I think it would be stupid for us to just, at the last hurdle as fans, be like, oh yeah, well, we don't believe anymore.
Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans Fanzone with me, Luce. I hope you're all doing well. As you can tell, obviously, on the screen, we've got Kenyah today, and this is actually our second attempt of trying to do this video because I'm going to blame my connection. But obviously, today is talking about your connection with Arsenal, and I feel like with AFTV, that is the main point of how we met. That is the main thing. Obviously, your dad founded it, so I feel like we can kind of guess the journey of how you got into supporting Arsenal. And obviously, before we started recording, we spoke a lot about our views and everything, which I'm like hoping we can save a lot for this episode. But as I do with all my guests, I guess I can probably answer this question myself on your behalf. But
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the same question that I ask every single guest. Why Arsenal? So why do you actually support Arsenal?
You answered your own question. I have a crazy family who, other than like 3 cousins, all support Arsenal. This is like not just my dad's side, my mum's side as well. And yeah, I just grew up in an Arsenal family. You know, my dad has been going to Arsenal games long before I was even born. He went with, you know, my uncles and his cousins growing up. And yeah, like it's just very, you know, normal in a sense when you have a parent that supports a football club. It's kind of just a given that you support them as well. And, you know, naturally growing up, like your dad will take you to games sometimes, or like he'd buy you kits. Like just, you know, I grew up in a family that supported Arsenal. Like that's there's no like, oh, I watched Thierry Henry and that just changed my life. Like, no, I just got you're supporting Arsenal and that's it. Like it was a non-negotiable.
Almost as if it doesn't matter if Arsenal are doing great, Arsenal are doing bad. It's
Yeah,
you've actually
exactly.
been born into it. You have no
It's
choice
like it's
around
like a
it.
religion, do you know what I mean? It's like a religion for some people. Like when you have a parent that supports a club, naturally they're gonna pass that on to their kids. Do you know what I mean? So that's just how life is for me. Not just for me, but for my sister, for my brother as well. Like, you know, it would be expected if I have kids, my kids will also support Arsenal. It's like a family thing, do you know what I mean?
Something that gets passed down generations. And I do quite like the
Yes.
community feel of it. Like I was
Yeah.
someone that got into supporting Arsenal kind of through those moments of, oh, this player did really well, or oh, let's go watch this team. They seem to be doing really,
Yeah.
really well. Whereas obviously for you, this is like a legacy that's going through
Yeah,
the
exactly.
generations of you have to support Arsenal. There's no other option, which
Yeah.
honestly is crazy that you've been born into it. And obviously your family has created a channel, which we're going to talk about in a bit, that literally is about being an Arsenal fan and supporting the club and everything, which is honestly crazy in itself.
I
I'm
know
kind of
it's
curious
nuts.
though, because if you've always supported Arsenal, you've been born into it, you've had all the shirts, you've had everything like that, was there a turning point in your head where you were like, okay, I feel like I really, really love Arsenal, or have you just always loved it, or was there a moment
I
that
don't
you're
know.
like,
It's hard to say because I'd say as a kid when I was at school I did play football, so I did like watching football. Do you know what I mean? It was a thing that I did with my dad. Like when my dad didn't maybe go to away games, we'd sit at home and watch it, or like we'd be in the car and you know a game's on. And this is even now, a game's on. My dad's listening to it, even if it's not an Arsenal game. So I kind of just grew up in that like football sphere of like football is actually almost it's part of your life. Do you know what I mean? It's part of something that you constantly hear, speak about. You know, we'd go for Sunday dinners at my granddad's house, and like, you know, Uncle Laurie, who's also on AFTV, my other uncles, we'd be there literally having dinner and they'd all be arguing about football that weekend. So it's just kind of like a thing of, you know, I kind of grew up in that atmosphere of like football was one of the main talking points. So you're naturally more likely wanting to watch it so you can have your say, like say what you feel. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of grew up loving football, and it was just a nice connecting point to family. So yeah, but I feel like as I've gotten older, it's gotten stronger because now I have my own money to buy my own shirts, go to games. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's been something that's just followed me throughout life, I'd say.
I really like the idea. Like I can kind of picture when you're having your Sunday roast or whatever you're having,
Literally,
and everyone's just chatting and shouting and
my dad and Uncle Laurie, they're just like it was when people see them in real life and they're having an argument. I'm like, this is nowhere near an argument. This is just a normal conversation for these two because I grew up with them constantly arguing over dinner about this person, that person, this player, that manager. Like, do you know what I mean? I grew up in that atmosphere. So it's so funny to me now, like when I see them like have their normal friction against each other when they disagree with each other's points, which is almost always, people are like, oh my God. And I'm like, guys, this is just like everyday life for me. Like, not even joking. It's so
I say
funny.
you're so used to that, and
I'm just
especially
like,
you're like
this is
hey,
normal. I'm like, this is lukewarm to what I was experiencing as a kid at Sunday roast. You guys don't understand. Coming back from church, going up to my granddad and my nan's house, going to have, Jamaica roast dinner, and them lot, my granddad would be watching cricket on the TV, and he would never switch off from Sky Sports. Those are the only channels we like watched in his house. And my dad and his brothers would just be there arguing. It was jokes. I grew up. It's just normal life for me.
that's actually so funny. Like literally just picturing that now. Was there sort of a turning point in your life where you were like, okay, I want to get involved in this sort of discussion at the table? Was it more those two argue, everyone sort of just watches and pipes up every so often?
I feel like, yeah, because them two, I'd say they're kind of like, they were always like they're always versus each other in the sense that they have just such different opinions on life in general. And then like it would just kind of be like me, my other two uncles, kind of like, my granddad was a big wind up though. He'd always like, he'd throw fire into the, do you know what I mean? He'd throw coal into the fire type of thing. He was a rage baiter essentially. He used to rage bait everybody. But like we would try to like not diffuse, but like be like, oh, but Uncle Laurie, maybe what Dad's saying, or Dad, maybe what's, do you know what I mean? Like just try to bridge the gap. So I don't know. I kind of grew up as a bit of a mediator, I guess.
I would say just trying to keep the peace, a bit of
Trying to
therapy,
keep the
like it's
peace,
okay.
relaxed. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I would say maybe in those instances of meeting everybody in the middle was kind of where you speak a bit more, I guess.
Mhm. No, I hear that. I hear that, and I feel like, as in, obviously, we'll talk more about the actual football in a bit. But whenever I talk to you, you've got quite a balanced approach. Like you'll say things and you'll be like,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is the best player," or this whatever. But as in, generally, when I see you on socials, when I'm having a conversation, you're a bit more balanced than I do feel like some people are. They're just like
yeah,
they have their point, they'll run with it until
exactly.
whenever.
Exactly. I feel like when I maybe because I've watched a lot of football as well, I just try to be as balanced as possible. I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's very easy to be either very optimistic or very pessimistic. And I feel like sometimes you have to meet in the middle. Like you can win a game 2-0 and still be like, right, wasn't really happy about that performance. You know what I mean? Like you can meet in the middle. I feel like sometimes, especially in today's football, like in football fans, it's
Yeah.
very like divisive in sense of people think they have to be one of two ways, where I'm just like, you can actually just be in the middle. You can actually
Mhm.
just be quite a neutral minded person. But
Literally
yeah.
both can exist at the same time. You can
Yeah,
be like, okay,
exactly.
we did great for winning, but also we probably should
Exactly.
have won by
Exactly.
more. So I feel like, yeah, that probably is where your mediator brain growing up being like, okay, they're
Exactly.
arguing. Let me just calm
Yeah.
this and just be like, I see both your points. So obviously going back to your dad going to games and then you taking you to games, you just watching and consuming loads and loads of football. I feel like there's probably so many moments that you could pick out since supporting Arsenal. But are there any in particular or any players in particular that you're like, yeah, I want to relive that moment a lot?
Oh,
It's a big question,
fuck.
actually.
It's hard to say, like I really enjoyed that time when I remember when Santi Cazorla first joined. I forgot what
Mhm.
game my dad took me to, and we went to go watch that game, and I was like, this guy's so good. And I still remember that. I even remember like um my dad took us to a couple of preseason games, and I was just like, wow, like I really want to come. I want to come to games more often because it was hard to go games with my dad because he was a season ticket holder. It was kind of
Mhm.
hard to like go with him, but we have some really good moments. I feel like now that I'm older, now that I can almost pay for my own tickets and I'm more available to go to games, we go to more games together. I'd say recently when we went to Leeds away, I loved that because I've been wanting to go to Leeds away for such a long time. And I was like, Dad, please help me get a ticket for Leeds away, help me get a ticket for Leeds away. He helped me get it. We were sat together, obviously we won 4-0. Like that was amazing. And it was like finally a ground that I've been saying for ages. I want to go here because it's just a great city, great atmosphere. But there's so many moments. I wouldn't even know where to start. Like even I remember what parade was it? I think when we went to the FA Cup. Which FA Cup is this that we won? I can't remember which FA Cup what year it was when we won it, but I remember meeting Alex Scott at that parade, and him and my dad actually, her and my dad are actually good friends. And meeting her was like, oh my God, I love the women's team. I remember he scored that goal in the final, do you know what I mean? To win us the Champions League. Like, it was just such a amazing moment. Like, there's actually been so many good moments with like my dad, to be honest, where he's taken me to a lot of games, but it's hard to nail it down, man. We've been to finals together. Like, yeah, it's hard to choose one. I can't
I
lie.
was gonna say it is so hard to just pinpoint. As in, when
Yeah,
I've asked quite a few people on this podcast and just general life, I'm like, oh, do you remember this or what's this moment or
yeah,
whatever? And it's so refreshing that everyone brings out a different game.
yeah.
Obviously,
Like,
you have the moments where it's like everyone's gonna say the same finals and talk about those big moments, but
exactly.
it's so nice when everyone can sort of just share their own unique thing of, for me, going to a Leeds away game, that might not be something that I would love to do. Obviously it'd be cool to do,
Yeah,
but for you that was like you've wanted to do this for ages, so
yeah.
it's nice.
Exactly. I think even after when we played Real Madrid, I went to that first leg,
Mhm.
and afterwards I walked around to my dad's seat, and just being with him after, like, we took a picture together and everything, and it was just like, I'm actually happy that I'm able to experience this moment with my dad. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I'm happy that we were in the same ground at the same time, saw it together. Like, we're here together now. Like, I remember even walking to the ground on that day. And shout out Raul, who's a Real Madrid fan. We were talking to him first, and he was saying, "You look nervous," and I was like, "No, I'm not." Funny enough, I wasn't nervous before that game. I was like, "I don't think we're gonna lose," and he was like, "No, like, it's Real Madrid," and obviously history says that we win that game 3-0. And like, even just walking to the ground, being in that atmosphere with my dad was just like, it was just a lovely moment, something that I'll just remember. Do you know what I mean? Remember for the rest of my life. It was just a good moment. It was kind of like, this is why I support Arsenal. This is why I go to football, because of these moments that I remember forever. And as well, I know that this will mean everything to my dad, who loves football
Mhm.
and obviously loves me. Like, he gets to share that moment with me. But there's so many moments, man.
That's
So
what I
many.
love about football and especially Arsenal, just hearing those stories because it's more than just a game, isn't it? Like it's
Exactly.
literally your connection to your dad is
Yeah.
so heavily based on obviously football by the sounds of it, Arsenal
Yeah.
in particular, and just being able to share those moments and it's so nice. And I just think you've got so many memories of Arsenal and obviously due to him. Can you
Yeah.
think of your first like moment where you like is there a first moment where you remember watching an Arsenal game or Arsenal being a thing? Because in my head when I talk to people and some are like, yeah, when I was 2 years old I watched this and I'm like, how do you remember that when you're so young?
Yeah.
Do you
I feel
actually
like
pinpoint?
I, I feel like, oh, I just remember being maybe 12 or something. My dad took me to a pre-season like tour that they did at the Emirates,
Mm-hmm.
and just being there, and I was just like, I want to come to more games. I want to do this more often. Like, this was actually a lot of fun. Like, obviously before that, I'd been to maybe the odd game here and there. Like, my dad would take us. He'd always try to take me to like the odd FA Cup games, because it would be easier for him to get tickets for us to go. But like, after that, it was kind of like, oh, I really want to be here more often. Like, I want to do this. Like, it was a fun day with my dad. Like, we're both wearing our Arsenal shirts, and yeah. So I'd say that was probably like, I'd say probably around 11. I remember that little pre-season. I always forget who we played, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great moment, and it just kind of made me think, I do want to do this more often. And at that time as well, I was getting into playing football a bit more, like just at school with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it just probably felt a bit more connected, in the sense like, oh, I actually play this sport. I actually do support Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of all the dots kind of connected in that moment, I guess. And I've just gotten more passionate since.
It's so nice that just one opportunity or you just said yes to one experience has
Yeah,
unlocked all of this that you're so
exactly.
proud to wear that Arsenal shirt that obviously you're wearing now and what
Yeah,
it means
I
to
love
you
this.
and the connection with your family. That is one of my favourite Arsenal shirts to
This
be
is
fair. That
this
is
is one of my favorite shirts,
so
honestly.
nice.
So nice, so
So
comfortable
nice.
as well.
Even like the scarf and the jacket, like there's
I
so much
know. I
that
really want
Arsenal.
to get the scarf. I saw the scarf. It's brilliant, and I just like the whole colorway of it. They've
Mhm.
brought out some other stuff. You going down to that Arsenal shop is a trap, man. I avoid going into that shop for a reason, genuinely.
I was
But
gonna
yeah,
say, I feel like you go in and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I want this, and then
you
I
go in
just
for one thing, and you just end up with leaving. You end up leaving with stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually need to buy this season's home shirt, and I've avoided going into the shop because I know I'm gonna leave with more than that home shirt. Genuinely.
yeah, I do feel like you'd go in and for me, I'm like, okay, no, I want this shirt, and then I see another one, I'm like, actually, maybe this one's better. And
Exactly,
even I
exactly.
went in with my friend, and he's recently had a daughter, and
Oh,
we went in and we were looking at like baby grows and the little outfits, and I was like, oh my god,
oh,
you can get them for like little Gunners. I was like, this is so cute. Like
that's so cute.
they have everything. But obviously, back to that experience that you said yes, and then it sort of like snowballed into all of these experiences you've had since. That's obviously more what you've been talking about the last 10 minutes is more focused on the men's game, I'm assuming, because your
Yeah,
dad had the season ticket. You did mention Alex Scott. Was there a moment that you can remember thinking, oh, there's a women's side as well? Because I know that's
yeah,
something that people grab onto maybe later on, unless you
yeah,
get through it in the women's game like I did.
yeah. So funny enough, um, again, my dad, he would just take us to. I went to a few youth games. I went to a few women's games. Going down to Boreham Wood, like watching them play. And it was kind of like, oh, it was easy. Obviously, it was much easier. It's easier to go to a women's game than it is a men's game. It's a very welcoming atmosphere. And as well, I remember as well, in the early days of AFTV, my dad interviewed, I think, Leah Williamson and Alex Scott, I want to say. And like it just kind of, there was a presence there. He got on well with some of the women's players. Obviously we end up meeting Ty, who's like mad about the women's team as well.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes he'd take me to a women's game, which was quite nice. Go down to Boreham Wood, and naturally it was kind of like, oh, there's people like me. There's women that actually play for Arsenal. They're a very successful team as well. Do you know what I mean? Invincible quadruple, like so much history, kind of like trailblazers essentially for women's football in this country. Like it was just, it was kind of a, oh, I do want to get involved in this more. I do want to like watch this more, and you know, time now I watch the women's game every week. I try to go to games as much as possible, but if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, I watch games at home. I watched us play Leon the other day, which was a great win. But
Good win.
yeah, I have as much as love for the women's team as I do the men's team. That's what I would say. I support both 100%. I try to keep up with both as much as possible, go to as many games as possible. And I think it's really nice to see how far the women's team have come. Like, before kind of a bit of an afterthought by a lot of fans. Whereas now you go to the Emirates, they're selling out the Emirates, or there's a really good turnout for games. And it's not just women that go, it's men as well. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I go to men's games and I see men with some of the women's players printed on their shirts. I know when we won the Champions League, they brought out that Champions League winning shirt. I remember going, who did we play the home game? And I saw a man wearing it, and it just was like, this is what this is about. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'd say big up Uncle Robs. He took me to the games. Big up Dad.
Yeah, no, big up. And I feel like you need to have the allies for the women's game as well because,
Exactly. It needs
like,
as much support as possible.
100%, it's a phrase that I feel like I say a lot of if you can see it, you can be it. It's that
Yeah,
representation across different genders,
exactly.
different backgrounds. It's so important. And I feel like that's exactly what happened with me as well, with my dad being like, oh, I want to take you to the best team in England. It's Arsenal. We're going to go to North London and we're obviously South London based. And
Yeah,
I was like, okay, cool. That's like a 2 hour trek. That's fine. And we used to do that most weeks to go to Boreham Wood. And it was so worth it because now I've got so
yeah,
much admiration. But pretty much everything you're saying comes back to this idea that Arsenal is one club. And we have
yeah,
that notion we have outside the stadium. You can see on all, obviously, the murals, you can see both the men
exactly.
and women historically have
Exactly.
played for us. I feel like the only thing that needs to happen is a statue of Kim Little or
Yeah,
some
I
Arsenal
think
trailblazer.
Vic Akers needs a statue. That
Mhm.
guy is a legend. I mean, invincible quadruple. I don't think anyone could ever say that they've done that. Do you know what I mean? And that's not something that's been done to this day. He's just such an incredible figure. And I feel like, as well, you think about not only the players that, he had under his watch, but even some of the coaches. Emma Hayes was under Vic Akers. Do you know what I mean? And she's one of the best women's coaches in women's football. And, look what she achieved at Chelsea. She's now at the US national team. Like, we
Mhm.
sit here and say, I genuinely could see Emma Hayes managing a men's team one day, and I'd actually love to see that. And that's all come from Vic Akers. I'm pretty sure he started off as a kit man, and that all kind of stems from him just like taking charge this women's team, and obviously achieving something so incredible like nobody would have ever thought of. So to me, Vic Akers needs a statue. Kim Little want to see a statue. Like again, another massive, massive legend, and yeah, but I do really like how in the Emirates now you have that mural of the women's team as well and the men's team. You see the men's team with the Invincible Premier League trophy. You see the women's team with the Champions League and just everything that they won in that time. So yeah, if we could get a Vic Akers statue, I'd be happy to start there. Then we can get a Kim Little. Who else? There's so many players that need Kelly Smith, for example. So many players that need recommendations, man.
That's the thing. You could honestly pick out so many because, like you said in the
So
answer
many.
before, it's all about trailblazers, and I do feel like
Exactly.
Arsenal women have led the way in terms of how
Absolutely.
we view women's football. I think obviously with the Lionesses winning the Euros, the last two tournaments that have happened, so over the last few years, we've seen a huge fan base grow, and it's gone towards
Exactly.
Arsenal because they've capitalised on the likes of having Leah Williamson, Beth Mead, Alessia Russo, you name all those players.
Exactly.
They're obviously
Exactly.
all Arsenal players. And I think, yeah, in terms of the statue, I quite like the idea of that. A lot of people kind of overlook the fact that Emma Hayes, who did so much work with Chelsea, maybe that's why, because she did so much work
Yeah.
with Chelsea, people overlooked that she was obviously a massive helper and contributor to Arsenal's
Yeah.
success. The same way that I feel like right now, obviously, if you look at Pep and Arteta, obviously
Exactly.
people like Man City fans love to remind us, oh, remember where Arteta came from? Like, remember who taught him? As in, we never really were saying that about Emma Hayes, but I'm like, actually, we probably should have been because,
Yeah.
like you said, it is so true. And I
That's where
feel like,
she, that's where she kind of starts her career in sense of
Mhm.
like she becomes really established and obviously I think at the time maybe she probably should have been looked at for an Arsenal job. It didn't work out that way. She goes to Chelsea and the rest is history for her. Do you know what I mean? She's a Chelsea legend as well. So, but shout out Vic Akers. He's
Mhm.
started this. Do you know what I mean? That's our
Exactly.
guy.
And I feel like that also comes back to the idea of being a male ally in the women's game as well, because it's so important of you need to build these people up and you need to bring them into the game, put them into the spotlight. And obviously he helped do that the same way that your dad and my dad obviously introduced us to the women's game as well, which is so, so important. Kind of
Exactly.
obviously we've spoken a lot about like your early memories of Arsenal, how you support Arsenal, which kind of was inevitable that it was going to be through your dad likely.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of perfectly links to you working in the game. Obviously, we
Yeah.
know that your dad founded AFTV, and if you go back, you'll see when it started and how it's grown since then, and how it's become like a global company, basically, like an
Yeah. Like an
organization that
entity. As I say.
everyone knows
Yeah.
AFTV, if that makes sense. So obviously we've got all of that, but I kind of am interested in how you got into it because obviously that is your dad. So then I know you went to uni. Is that something that you thought as soon as you graduate you want to join AFTV and be more involved? Obviously you were behind the scenes when I was there a few years ago, whereas now
Yeah.
you're more in front of the camera as well as behind the scenes. I feel like there's so much. So I guess just sort of if you're able to just talk me through your journey with
Yeah.
AFTV and how you got involved.
AFTV is really funny. AFTV is kind of like a sibling because I grew up with it. Like my dad started it. I was in secondary school. I kind of watched it come from this really small hobby that I used to call it, this hobby that my dad did, to like now it's an actual company, an actual entity. Like, it's well respected and won awards and stuff. Um, but basically, I went to uni. I'd always wanted to go into some type of journalism, right? So I went to uni. I studied politics and international relations because I have an uncle that works kind of in that journalism field. And I was saying to him, what should I study? He said, right, take something that you're really interested in and do it as like a specialized subject. And I was like, cool. So I took that, did really well at uni. I left uni and I was like, right, I spent 3 months out of uni just being like, I just want to enjoy life because I know once I start working, that's it. I'm working for the rest of my life. So I spent them 3 months kind of thinking about what I wanted to do. And then I started applying for jobs and stuff like that. And basically, I remember applying for this one job. I went and had my interview. And basically, they offered me the job on the spot. And I was like, wow, thanks. This is amazing. I was like, of course, like, let me go away and actually think about it. I came home, told my dad, and he goes, turn that down. You're coming to work for me on Monday. I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, no, they've actually offered me a proper job. Like, like this is actually a decent job. It was kind of outside of journalism, but I was like, you know what, this is a good job to start with outside of uni, like to get my expertise up and stuff like that. And he was like, turn it down, you're coming to work for me on Monday. So I turned down the job and then the next Monday I went to AFTV and they put me in a production coordinator role, basically, like helping plan loads of stuff. And basically, Lucy, when I met you, I think you could say that I was essentially reaching out to people, planning watch alongs and, helping them plan the content. And as time's gone on, I've just learnt more skills. So now I can edit, now I can shoot. My role is a producer, but now I'm more on camera as well. So I'm a mixture of a content creator now and a producer. So it's crazy. I just started off as, being told you're coming to work with me on Monday, kind of learning how AFTV works, what is good content, what isn't good content, what people are interested in, learning about YouTube, which obviously I watched YouTube, but I'd never created a YouTube video before. So it was very interesting to kind of see the more technical side of it. And now I work on AFTV. I mostly work on DR Sports as well, which is like our sister channel. Um, that's where most of my responsibilities are. But I still do loads of stuff on AFTV, especially on game days. And yeah, it's just like the rest is history, really. I just kind of got pulled into it. And like I do enjoy it a lot. I'm actually very thankful that it all worked out that way because I feel like, I am in some type of journalism. I'm in sports journalism, essentially, just in a very untraditional way. And I get to do something that I love, which is watching football. Like I watch football anyways. It just makes life better that I can report on it, write about it, plan content about it. When actually, this is to me, it's kind of seen as like a hobby because I love watching football, not just Arsenal, but just the Premier League, Champions League. Do you know what I mean? So it just all works out very well.
I do
But
find
yeah,
it mad, like obviously working in the sports industry myself, when I'm talking to other people like you that are in it, I'm like, how is this a job? How like
I know
is it
it's
that we
it's
can watch football, chat about football, and that suddenly become like that's a full-time role? And like you said, obviously you went to uni thinking, okay, proper hardcore written journalism vibe, and I thought the same doing sports journalism. And then I came out of it, and the media landscape is constantly changing. The fact that you
exactly.
started off coordinating, you were reaching out. I remember you reaching out to me and things
Yeah,
like that to get me on those watch alongs, which was so nice and so refreshing. And then it was just like, okay, from that moment, then you kind of were able to edit, then you were doing more behind the scenes stuff. Now you're in front of the camera. It's so good that when you just sort of are open to learning everything, I feel like this
exactly.
industry can offer you so, so much because it's like, okay, I want to learn this, I want to learn that. And the more you want to learn, the more all rounded you're going to be. And that's, I feel like, what is desirable right now in the industry. Obviously, you kind of are behind and in front of the camera. Is there one that you prefer, or are you still just sort of figuring
I
out
don't really
how
know.
to
I
balance
mean,
it?
it's hard to say because being in front of camera is really cool. Like, it does feel like when you're doing watch alongs and stuff, it's like it's like being sat at home or with your friends
Mm-hmm.
watching a game. But also, I do really, really love like, I mostly work on DR Sports and being able to do like the background planning of a Best of Enemies episode, for example. Like, that is also very rewarding when you have an idea and like just putting it to life. It does feel really rewarding, really good. And then sometimes you make content, not necessarily always about Arsenal, but you make content and you feel proud of it because it's like, right, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. I went to these lengths to make sure I get the right people, the props right. Like, it is nice sometimes to watch back content and be like, yeah, I produced that, or I helped edit that, or I was vision mixing this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'd say it's even at the moment. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy both a lot.
To be fair, I do feel like I'm the same. It's so nice to be
Yeah,
able to see your ideas come to life and then, oh
exactly.
yeah, I moved the camera that way and then I decided to do this sort of shot and
Exactly.
angle. But then also it's also cool to be like, oh, I'm in front of it and now I'm able to talk
Yeah.
about it. It's just it is crazy like when you look at media and sort of what you can go into
Exactly.
now. Do you have any aspirations with it? Obviously right now you're based with mostly DR Sports, but is there sort of is that like a permanent thing? Or are you not a 5 year planner? Because I'm not a 5 year planner. Like I
I'm not a,
go
I'm
with the
yeah,
flow.
I'm not a planner. I'm a go with the wind type of person. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't even expect to work here at one point. Now I fully work here. I'm a producer. Like I never expected that. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, Kenya, you're gonna be a producer at AFTV and DR, I'd be like, no, I'm not. Like, there's
yeah.
no way. So
Just a hobby.
exactly. I'm just kind of going with the wind at the moment, but I think if I could make more content, like actually produce it, create it, but also be in front of camera more, I'd be happier. Like just get my views out there and see how it goes. Like, I think just working in this field, and you'd agree as well, you can see like how you having your say or doing something goes so far. You'd actually be
Mm.
so surprised the amount of people that watch your content or like say, oh, I love that. Like the amount of times I've had people come up to me like, oh, I loved your fan cam this week. I was like, wow, thanks. Or, oh, I saw that Best of Enemies episode. I absolutely loved it. And it was like, yeah, thanks. Like, we put in so much hard work into it. We come in early to shoot that and to know that, people are waiting at 6 p.m. every Friday to watch that show, it just means more to you. So yeah, just I just want to up my content. I just want to keep going up the levels to see how I'm going to get better. Like, if that's on camera, if that's producing, editing, like, I just want to keep getting better and better. That's just my goal at the moment, to be honest.
No, 100%, 100%, and I'm manifesting that for you because I feel like when
Yeah,
you're putting in the work as well, it's gonna pay off, and it
exactly.
already is paying off. I feel like people listening or watching right now, they're already gonna take some top tips based off your journey because everyone's got different journeys. But I feel like one thing that I feel like it always comes up in conversation, and it's sort of an ongoing thing that I feel like is so good to hear other people's version, experiences, their advice in general, is about burnout because you've just mentioned
Yeah,
there that you're on fan cams, you're at the games, you're on watch alongs, then you're setting up shows, you're doing different programs. That's a lot going on.
yeah, it's a lot.
And because I feel like it's so good and bad, but we've made our hobby and our passion into a career. So then it's like,
Yes.
when do you actually switch off? So, like, do you deal with burnout well? Or.
Yeah, I do. I burn out quite a lot. So I would say what I personally like to do is when I burn out, I like to go on holiday. That is my thing. I love to travel. So recently I went to New York. Like, I was like, you know what, got family out there. Let's just go. Like, and that week, honestly, sometimes just disconnecting from like football can be good in the sense that when I was over there, I still watched games. Like, a shout out O'Hanlon's. We went to O'Hanlon's bar, which is like a famous Arsenal bar. Went there twice to watch the games, and like it was so nice maybe just being in a different atmosphere and experiencing like us watching the games, but like just switching off from that, spending time with friends and family. Like, I like to do other creative things outside of this. Like, I just think sometimes you gotta be able to say, right, enough is enough. I'm not going to maybe overload myself with too much. I know when I'm feeling a bit like, oh, I'm ready for this to end.
Mhm.
Like, that's why I enjoy international breaks now as well, because it's just a bit more of a relaxed thing. Like, it's calmer. Club football's not on, but I would say going on holiday is my favorite. It's a perfect excuse to do during burnout. And then I love working out. Exercising is my favorite thing. I try to exercise as much as possible, be like as active as possible, even if that's not going gym, going on walks. Sometimes me and my friends, we went to the Lakes District and just went on a hike. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. Just like
Mhm.
sometimes just knowing when actually I could do with a bit of downtime, a bit personal time. So yeah, that's how I deal with burnouts, to be honest. Because I think when you are, as you know yourself, when you're editing, sometimes it's so easy to be burnt out after a big edit, and you're just like, no, I've got an edit tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Like, when to just switch off. Like, things like reading as well, love it. Like, it helps so much, honestly.
And I feel like because all the things you've just said are quite calming, it is because it's so chaotic. Like when you're editing,
Exactly.
even just staring, talking now, like as in you're constantly working, your brain's constantly functioning, that it's nice to just
Exactly.
go out, go for a walk, things like that. Like if you can't obviously afford to go on trips, it's so nice to even just go for a little walk and just
Yeah, exactly.
read, just little things like that. And honestly, I completely relate to that. And I feel like
Yeah.
it is so, so important to have that because as you're in the industry, I feel like I've kind of been in the industry maybe for a couple of years now, like two,
Yeah.
3 years, I want to say.
Yeah,
I'm sort of like, okay, I'm understanding my body a little bit better, but even with the
exactly.
change in schedule, I'm constantly trying to adapt and learn new things that it's like so good that you
Literally.
already can sense it coming and almost prevent it by going for that walk when you're feeling a little bit tired just before it gets
Yeah.
too busy and chaotic. But I do feel like we love it being busy and chaotic when there's lots of
Yeah.
football on. So it's kind of like we can't really complain. Like once the
It's a,
World Cup's
yeah,
done, we'll be back talking about pre-season.
exactly.
It's
Exactly.
constant always, and I feel like there is actually so much to talk about in terms of this season. Like so much because I feel like whenever I'm doing the episode on a Tuesday, I'm looking ahead to the week, and there's always 4 games recently. It feels like there's always a
Yeah.
WSL, a Premier League game, and then yes, we had FA Cup and League Cup games that didn't go our way, but we still got the Champions League. And I was talking to you just before we started recording, saying that it's actually mad that at one point we were thinking, right, no silverware a few weeks ago, and now we're thinking, okay, we could win the Premier League, the WSL, the men and women could both get the Champions League. It feels like there's a lot. So I feel like we're gonna
Yes.
try break it down a bit. So I'm just gonna start off with quite a simple question, but you can sort of go at any direction with it.
Okay.
Are you confident that we can win the Premier League this season? Is this the year?
Um,
It's simple,
you
but
know
it's
what?
such a
I'm gonna say yes. I think we're gonna win the league. I think I said to Abby, who is obviously a Spurs fan, I remember saying to her, she was like, right, you guys won the league. And I said, Abby, I know our men's team, they will win the league in the most hardest way possible. I know it. We'll suffer past that finish line. And I generally think that's what's going to happen. Um, we've had our bad spell, and unfortunately, we've let Man City back in. But I still think we're in the driver's seat in the sense that they're waiting for us to slip up. Do you know what I mean? We're not. It would be good for us if they slip up, but we know if we win the rest of our games, if we play convincingly well, we can win the league. Whereas they're kind of sat there thinking, right, a lot does depend on Arsenal. They've probably got on paper the hardest games, harder games. You know, they've got to go away to Everton and Bournemouth. Do you know what I mean? They've got Aston Villa on the last day. Like, we obviously have a few tricky games in there. Like, I think West Ham away is a big game. But I do have faith in this team. I think, you know, the season so far, they've shown me that they're fighters. Do you know what I mean? They've shown me that actually against odds, against all the hate that they get, which I think is absolutely insane, they can persevere and push their way through. Like, we've not maybe been convincing in terms of attacking play, but we still found a way in almost every single game. And I think it would be silly of me to say I don't believe in this team when for like 30, what, how many 32 game weeks, they've shown me that actually we're going to try and find a way to win a game. So, yeah, you know, I'm going to back it. I'm going to 100% back it. We're going to win the league. I'm going to back it.
This is what I mean when I say you've got such a realistic viewpoint, but also one that's like quite positive as well. Because I feel
Yeah,
like that's sort of my stance where I'm thinking right now, like, why can't we win it? Is in people like, oh,
exactly.
like why do you think you'll win it?
It's
It's like,
not
well,
over
why
yet.
not?
Exactly. I keep saying to people like, right, we've let Man City back in. And I was like, yeah, but you're just banking on the thought of that we're going to lose every game and Man City are going to win every game. And I personally don't think either team, I just don't see one of us being perfect. And I'm going to bank on us being perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think, you know, obviously Man City right now are in a good spell. But before that, they drew to West Ham, they drew to Forest at home. Do you know what I mean? Like, these were home games that on paper they was expected to win. I remember when they played Brighton, they drew with Brighton at home. Do you know what I mean? Like, games that I remember me and my dad being like, oh, is there any point in us watching this? And they actually didn't end up winning. And I'm just like, why can't I have faith that my team is gonna win? You know, against Newcastle, it weren't pretty, but we made it through. That's all that matters. Like, and people be like, oh, you only beat Newcastle 1-0. But I'm like, if you look at Newcastle's last two games, they lost by literally a one goal margin in every single game. So whereas, you know, Man City beat Burnley only 1-0, where they were expected to basically battle Burnley, no offense. So why can't I have hope? Why can't I believe? Like, it's not over yet. We still have a brilliant chance, but now there's just no room for error. That's just how I see it. So, you know, I think it would be stupid for us to just at the last hurdle as fans be like, oh yeah, well, we don't believe anymore. Why? What was
Mhm.
the point? What's the point of supporting if you're gonna feel like that way?
I feel like this is so important to flip the narrative because the
Yeah,
way that a lot of the media, I mean, we both work in the media, so we both are very
yeah,
clued on with what people say, rival fans, even Arsenal fans that are like, oh,
yeah.
well, we've been here before, blah, 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 whatever. I think it's actually so important to flip that narrative because the way that people talk about Arsenal is as if we're in that relegation battle with Spurs, when in
Exactly,
fact, we're literally in the title race for like, what, the fourth year in a row. And yes,
exactly.
because of the past, it's like, okay, this will happen again. But I think we're there. Like, we just need to get it over the line something over the line, and I think that will give so much confidence moving forwards. I was going to ask you obviously about that Newcastle game, but I feel like you answered it perfectly just then because it is like, yes, we got that 1-0, and yes, I feel like more people were relieved rather than like fully
Yeah.
confident leaving
I
that
was just
game.
like, whew, we're
Yeah,
out of here. We finally won a game again. Do you know what I mean? We're getting back into what we're
yeah.
supposed to be doing. Like, this is a good launch pad now to just kick on and try and win the league. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's, I feel like we need to use that as momentum. I think even when you look at City, yes, they've just progressed to the final of the FA Cup, but they were 1-0 down, then obviously got
Yeah.
disallowed by
They
Southampton.
like they scraped past Southampton. Do you know what I mean? And the
Literally.
reality is Southampton knocked us out. They knocked Fulham out. Do you know what I mean? Like, they've actually had a really good FA Cup run, and they actually played quite well against Manchester City. To be honest,
Hmm.
I'd say they're quite unlucky to have lost that. So, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, I also think in the sense that we've not had a fully fit squad all season. I keep saying that to everyone. There's not been one moment where we've had everybody available and, you know, had a fully fit squad where we said, right, we're taking this person to the game. Do you know what I mean? The amount of games that we've had without I saw a stat the other day. They said Havertz, Saka, Odegaard, they hadn't played with each other since sometime in 2025 or 2024. Do you know what I mean? And I think when I was thinking about it, when was the last time? That's probably true because Saka's been out, Odegaard's been out, Havertz has been out. Like everybody's been injured other than what? David Raya probably.
I
Like
think,
that's just the realities.
yeah, I mean, that is a mad stat, and it does make sense
Yeah.
because I think because we have such a good squad depth, I feel like obviously
Yeah.
maybe our striker, that is something that we kind of, there's always been question marks the last few seasons, but I think as a whole we have quite a good squad depth that if we're missing a
Exactly.
centre back, it's fine, we can just replace them. But then you do
Exactly.
realise that okay, your best starting 11 isn't actually all playing together because
Exactly.
of moments like that. So it's actually just so, it's crazy when you put it like that. And I think the fact that we're competing in multiple competitions as well, we need to have that
Exactly.
squad depth. We need to have our best players. Obviously, we're in the Premier League and the Champions League. Right now, we've just had the Newcastle game and we're about to have the Atletico Madrid game. When this comes out on Friday, it would have been gone. Like the first leg
Yeah.
would have happened. But as a whole, would you rather win the Premier League or the Champions League? It's a question I feel like I've been asked way too many times recently.
Yeah. I personally, I'm not going to turn my nose up at either. I personally think I would prefer, at this moment in time, I'd prefer to win the league. I just think, to me, you're winning your domestic league is your bread and butter. It's the highest, one of the best achievements you can have. And I feel like there's been teams that maybe aren't that great that have won the Champions League, but I think you have to be good to win the Premier League. And I think as well, considering that we finished second 3 times, you want to make sure that this is the time you win the league. I think just based on the season we've had, to me, we've been the best team in the country. Like, I don't even think Man City have had spells where they've been good. We've been consistently good throughout. Do you know what I mean? And you can see in how many games we've lost in all competitions, stuff like that. That's there for a reason. So to me, I just want us to win the league. And I feel like you win the league now, you also take down that pressure of right, oh my god, you have to win the league because you've already done it. And it's like, right, now you've won the league, you want to build on that and win the Champions League, etc. However, if we're to win the Champions League, I'm going to be absolutely happy with that as well because it's something that we've never achieved before. But to me, bread and butter first. Premier League is what I've got my eyes like really set on. That's a non-negotiable for me. I can't lie.
I feel like I'm going to end up just echoing a lot of what you're saying because I do feel like with the Premier League, it's all about consistency. And that is something that when you think about it, if we, in a mad world, City have the treble, if they get it over the line with the FA Cup and also the Premier League, and then Arsenal win the Champions League, there will be people that are still hating on the fact that Arsenal
Exactly.
have only won that one piece of silverware. So obviously, we've got to focus on ourselves, but I think we don't want to create that sort of narrative of like we can never do it in the Premier League because I think 3 years is enough of going through that pain and that trauma
Yeah.
of like what you were saying is we'll get it over the line but we're gonna suffer. I feel like we've suffered a lot the last few years as
Yeah.
Arsenal fans in the
Exactly.
Premier League. So either way it would be great to have any silverware. I feel like anything would be amazing, but if we could pick, we just need to get it over the line and then maybe next year you can rebuild and think, okay, Premier League, we've just done that recently, would be great to retain it, but Champions League you can look to. I feel
Exactly.
like the fans are pretty nervous as a whole. Like some are feeling calm and confident, like obviously what you're sort of expressing right now, but as a whole it does feel quite nervy in the stands. Obviously you're at most of those home games. What are your thoughts on Arteta? Because he comes out with a lot of mad things in the press conferences, and I feel like he's dividing a lot of fans' opinions, as in not even just Arsenal but opposition fans as well. People are saying he needs to win this to stay, even if he doesn't win, and think he's built so much so he should stay. Like, what are your general thoughts with his behaviour, his actions, and where he will actually end up in the summer?
I personally, okay, in terms of Mikel Arteta, I actually like him. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's someone that has different ideas, and I don't think there's anything bad with someone who's different. I think, we need to remember the climate of what he came into in the sense of I remember at points, it was so easy to go to Arsenal games because hardly anyone turned up. Do you know what I mean? It was called the library. And I feel like now you go to games and you see fans turn up in massive amounts for every single game. Like I remember last season where we knew we weren't going to win the league, fans were still turning up for league games. You know what I mean? Still supporting the team. So I just think I'm not against his wacky ideas of the holding the pens and all this stuff. I don't mind that. I don't mind him saying to fans, get up in the morning, come support the team. Because the reality is, you know, when you play football as well, you know what it feels like. Just, you know, we played on an amateur level, but you go to a game and you see your parents in the crowd, it obviously is going to make you want to play better naturally. So I feel like, as well with players, if they see Arsenal fans turning up in massive numbers, singing and just really encouraging them, of course they're going to want to turn out. I do think though, you know, that also has to be reciprocated by the players. You know, the Bournemouth game, I went to that. He was there saying, bring your breakfast and stuff like that. Fans turned up in numbers, full support, but the players didn't show the support that they received on the pitch, and we ended up losing the game. And I think that's where fans can maybe feel disconnected, because it's like, you're telling me to turn up, I'm doing my job, you know, I'm paying really high ticket prices to go to Arsenal games, which is very true, it's very expensive. I'm coming with my kids, and you know, I'm taking my dad and my mum or whatever, and I'm coming every single week. I need you as players now and as a manager to show that on the pitch. So it does go both ways. But look, I just think, to me, I said at the start of the season, I like Mikel Arteta, but football is all about winning. Nobody remembers who finished second or third or fourth or whatever. Everybody remembers who won the league, who won the FA Cup, who won the Carabao Cup. And to me, or who won the Champions League. And to me, that's what he has to do. He has to win, in my opinion, major honours this season to keep his job. I just think the squad we have, the setup we have, there's no excuse that we can't win the league. I think the last 2 seasons you could sit here and say squad wasn't deep enough, injuries killed. Like last season, injuries were killer. Do you know what I mean? Saka, Havertz, Gabriel out, like, you know, the core of your team gone. I completely get it. This season, the recruitment's been brilliant in terms of who we brought in. There's more than enough to win the league. So to me, if he doesn't deliver on that, there has to be a question about his job, although I do like him. I don't think you can just have someone like, how do even the players feel saying like, right, we've stuck by you now for how many seasons and we've left empty-handed again, God forbid. But like, do you know what I mean? So I just think he has to win. He has to win the league, or he has to win the Champions League, in my personal opinion, to keep his job. That's just my personal opinion. But I do like him as a coach. I think he's good. You know, I like his ideas. I do support him, but I do think as well I can be critical of him at times. Like, I always say, I'm not Arteta in or out. I'm just Arsenal win. That's just my point of view. And whoever's gonna make us win the league, the Champions League, I don't care who it is, I'll support it. Do you know what I mean? And I really want it to be him. That's what I would say. I'd love for him to win the league, because I do think he deserves to say I've won the Premier League. That's what I would say.
I definitely am on his side with that. Like, I want him to do well. And obviously, you'd want your manager. I don't understand when
Yeah,
football fans don't want their managers to do it, or their players, or they want to get them out straight away because it's like, give them a chance. It feels like Chelsea, West Ham, Spurs, they're going through these spells where they're getting so many different managers in. And I'm like, they haven't even sat down at the desk yet
exactly.
at work. It's just sort of like, let them breathe, let
Exactly.
them do their thing. And but I do agree that it's got to the point with Arteta where the football needs to do the talking. Right now, people aren't remembering where he came in the league. They're remembering the light bulb. They're remembering the pens. They're remembering the dog.
Exactly.
They're remembering all these things. And I'm
Exactly.
like, that's fine. Do that. As in, I do love the ideologies and things sometimes. But
Yeah.
when the football's not backing it up, that's, I feel like, where that is, that big disconnection. And that's something that hopefully can improve over the next few weeks, because if it doesn't, it's probably going to end up
Yeah.
heartbroken for everyone on all different sides. Um, I feel like the narrative was slightly different with the women's though, because right then we're talking about there's a lot of pressure with the men. There's
Yeah.
so much pressure that if Arteta doesn't do this, he's lost his job, and if the players don't win this, everyone's going to say this. Whereas I feel like with the women's side, Slagers could get no silverware this season, and in my opinion, she should still be our manager. There's no question
Yeah.
marks around her because of what she did, obviously, as her first season, taking over from Edeval last year, winning that Champions League. And the fact that she's even putting us in the title race discussion, that's something that Arsenal haven't been in the
For
conversation for
such a
winning the
long time.
WSL in ages.
Yeah.
So I
Since
feel like, yeah,
COVID times, really. Yeah.
so I feel like focusing obviously on the WSL, the title race kind of is back on, kind of not. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves,
On.
but
It's
if we win our
on.
games in hand, it kind of looks like it is. And if City, I think it's if City lose a game and then win a game, then we've done it. But then if City win on draw, then it's sort of down to goal difference. Like, there's a lot that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But do you feel like it could still happen, or are you sort of like, you know what, it's
I'm
fine either way?
Look, I've seen this women's team do crazy things. Last year, no one expected us to win the Champions League. I didn't even expect us to win the Champions League. We went against all odds. We beat Lyon, record holders. We beat Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? The best team in the world. Think about all the teams that we had to play on the way to get to that. You know, we started in the first round. Do you know what I mean? And we still won the Champions League. The first team to ever do that. So of course I'm gonna believe that we can win the league. Absolutely. I just think we've got three games in hand. I think we've played 17 games. I think Man City have played 20 games maybe. Like, why not? If we win our 3 games, why can't we win the league? You know, we beat Man City a couple of weeks ago as well, which was really good. Like, I think if we look in, we win those games. Like, why can't we say the title race is on? Do you know what I mean? Right now, it's looking like, oh, it's not that deep because obviously we've not played those games. So right now, you know, we seem way off Man City. But I have full faith in this team. Why not go for a last minute charge? Do you know what I mean? Obviously, we've not played those games because we've been in the Champions League as well. But based on this team, the way they've performed recently, why can't I say that they could win the league? It sounds far fetched, but they genuinely can. And it would be so Arsenal FC. It would be so Arsenal women's to win it. I don't think anyone understands. We Arsenal women's at the start of the season, ugh, at the end of the season, cash money. Like that's when everyone locks in. And I think as well, a lot of players are set to leave as well. So that they're thinking, right, this might be my last moment to, you know, really lock in and win something massive for the last time with this club. Do you know what I mean? So of course I'm gonna say we can win the league. Why not? I mean we're not favourites to do it, but I'm gonna back it.
Honestly, I feel like because of the history Arsenal women have of, like you said earlier, Vic Akers, we won everything that was possible to win. We were entering all these competitions and thriving and so successful. Now, because in the recent years, if people are watching, Arsenal have the biggest fan base in the WSL, but for some
Yeah,
reason that doesn't really translate to trophies, apart from obviously that Champions League trophy last season. I think even beating Chelsea this season to get through to the stage that we are against
yeah,
Lyon
massive.
is a great achievement in itself. And when this
Exactly.
episode will go out, literally it will be tomorrow morning, that will be feeling the nerves obviously ahead of that Lyon game in the
Yeah,
afternoon. And I just feel like, yeah, anything does feel like it's possible. You mentioned obviously that a few players have left. A few players have obviously signed their contract extensions, like Stina
yeah,
Blackstenius, who obviously
Steph Catley
spotlighted
as well. Yeah,
exactly. And then obviously, yeah, Steph Catley. Zinsberg has already left, but I feel like she wasn't as key in the recent squads, but such a good hype woman. So obviously one that's like
yeah,
sad to see her go, but it was kind of inevitable that would happen. For me, the two names that have come out recently, and there's so many rumours, is the fact that Katie McCabe and Bethany could be going to Man City. As an Arsenal
yeah.
fan and as someone, obviously you've watched the women for many years now, how would that feel like? How crushing would that be for them to go to a rival club that we're currently competing in the title race with?
Yeah, it's really difficult because you know they're two amazing. To me, they're two legends. You know what I mean? They've done an amazing, like, won the league, won the champions, literally achieved everything at this club. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Cemented in our history. I think in terms of Beth Mead, I do think it's probably the right decision to move on. I think this isn't the Beth Mead, you know, of a couple of years ago. I think that ACL injury was just a bit more damaging than we expected. But still such a big clutch player for us. But I do think we could upgrade in that position. And you know, obviously, her and Vivian Miedema are in a relationship. I understand Vivian Miedema as well as at Manchester City. So within her interest, it's better for her to be with her family in Manchester, which I understand. Katie McCabe is a really difficult one because I think, you know, I remember when Katie McCabe turned down Lyon, she turned down Chelsea as well, you know, to stay with us. And I think this season, you know, I think she's put in so many great shifts playing at centre back sometimes. And I'm just like, maybe we should keep her, man. Maybe we should sign her on for even another year. Maybe she shouldn't be the starting left back or the starting fullback or the starting centre back, but she is an option off the bench. She's so important. The clutch goals that she has scored and taken us through, like, I don't know, man. It would really unsettle me if we let them both go to Man City because I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're when you're competing with a club, you never really want to give them your gems. Do you know what I mean? You never really want to sell. That's why you find a lot of times, especially in men's football, they'll be like, right, well, we won't sell you to a Premier League team. We'll sell you abroad because we know that you're not going to compete with us, type of thing. And I think to let them both go to Man City, I just look at that Man City team right now. I think they're very good. I think their depth is amazing. They've got so many brilliant players. You know, I'm Jamaican heritage. Seeing Bunny Shaw there, she's unbelievable. She doesn't get the respect she deserves. And I think, imagine Bunny Shaw getting a crossing from Katie McCabe. Like, I already see how that
Oh
ends. Do you
no.
know what I mean? Exactly. And I'm just like, bro, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure I want to see that. I'm not going to lie. So, but I think it's likely that they're both gonna leave, to be honest,
hmm
which is a
I,
bit sad. End
I
of an
think
era.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what you were mentioning, obviously, about Beth Mead is probably looking more likely out of the two because there were all those rumours last year in the summer about
Yeah,
her, is she going to London City Lionesses, is she not? And it
Linus
all
is,
came
yeah,
down to like the last day and they were like, no, she's one of us and like one of
yeah,
our own. And to me, Beth Mead is Arsenal. So if she suddenly left, it would be like, wow, like that.
yeah,
That's a big thing. But like you said, there's obviously personal reasons as well why she might want to move up north. So it does make sense. And I just feel like I've heard a lot of people say this, and I completely want to just echo it that if Katie McCabe does leave Arsenal, it's going to create a whole new era for Arsenal because I think that having those key
agree.
players like Katie McCabe, Beth Mead, if they're no longer with us, even Zinsberger, because when you look at what we've done the last few years with all the League Cups we won, the Champions League, she was still within that squad.
Yeah,
Seeing those players leave, it's quite like,
it's
okay,
the
well,
end of it.
yeah, it's a complete end of an era. Like we're starting something fresh now. That it's like, okay,
Yeah,
this is different. We're gonna get in some new players. I'd love to get in more signings like an Olivia Smith because I think what she's brought to
yeah.
the squad,
Breath of fresh air, honestly.
literally so direct, and I think that's what you were saying with Katie McCabe. She is so
Yeah,
direct as well. So we need to be replacing those players like for like, but ones that are even more versatile. Where Olivia Smith will cut in the middle as well. She won't just play out on the wide, on the wing,
yeah,
and it's just so important to have those players. And I just feel like, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one what we can expect from the window because at this point it could go anywhere, and a lot of fans love to chat. And I don't
yeah.
know, obviously, where it's going. But like you said, it would be sad if that happened. Sort of similar question to what I just asked you then about Arteta. With Slagers, or actually with Arsenal women as a whole, what do they need to do to be successful this season? Do you think their success is actually down to silverware or just positions?
Um, well, what for Arsenal women's in terms of how they're going to be successful? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of this season, obviously the season's still ongoing. I just think, you know, the players. We've had an injury riddled season as well. I think if the players can just get behind the manager, she already knows what she's doing. To come in your first season and win the Champions League in
Mm.
that fashion, like that's not a mug. Do you know what I mean? That's someone that is very clued up and is very tactically diverse, brilliant for thinker. So I think they can be successful if they trust in the manager who's already proven that she knows what she's doing. But I do also think in the summer, you know, we need to have a big summer. Like, there's a lot of play, as we just said, you know, Katie McCabe, Beth Mead, Manu Zinsberger's already said she's leaving. Caitlin Ford is another person that could be leaving or is expected to leave at the end of the season. Obviously, Leah Volti left in the summer, which I was shocked at, if I'm being
Mm.
100% honest. We also have, you know, players going through personal things. Beth Mead at the moment, or she's potentially leaving in the summer. She's going through a personal issue. Kyra Cooney Cross as well, unfortunately, with her mum is not available for us for the rest of the season. We just wish her best wishes as possible. Um, you know, the team needs to be supported by our board as well. And I think that's where we've maybe let ourselves down in previous seasons. And you look at maybe a Man City and a Chelsea, especially at Chelsea, the reason why in recent years they always win the league is because they're constantly up in their team, constantly looking at it and being like, right, I know you're a great servant, but there's someone out there that we think is better that we can replace. Do you know what I mean? And I think in the summer we kind of need to have that bit of mentality of like, right, Kim Little cannot do another season where it's just her. Do you know what I mean? Like, love her, she's a legend, but there's got to be somebody else. We need support maybe on the wingers in for the wingers as well, and we need competition in those areas, especially in defense as well. So I think in terms of this current season, the players lock in. This is another season to make history. Do you know what I mean? Renee, I have full trust in her ability. She's already proven to me that she can be trusted. Players just got to back her. And then in the summer, I expect to have a really big summer where, you know, we're just, you know, someone like Claire Wheatley, for example, who's so instrumental in those signings, goes and gets what Renee needs, which is a lot, if we're being honest, considering that, as we said, this is a new era. And then hopefully we'll see the likes of Katie Reed back, you know, we'll see hopefully Michelle back, which would be a massive added boost to our team. I mean, it's so sad that both have done their ACLs, but both have got such, you know, high ceilings. And I think it's such a shit, especially Katie Reed, with her breakout. I was like, wow, you know, this is the future Leah Williamson that I'm watching. Do you know what I mean? I'm getting those kind of vibes from her. So yeah, we got a lot to do, but we must believe. We must believe.
100%. I think if anyone can take anything from this episode, it's about that belief. And I feel like
Exactly.
it's so realistic to be like, yes, we can still improve in so many different ways. And almost the last like 5-10 minutes, I feel like it's been more based around the future and what the summer can bring. But focusing literally on what's happening right now, it is like, yeah, okay, this is crunch time. In the men's
Yeah,
game, we need silverware. The women's game, we don't necessarily need the silverware. But the fact that we're even in those conversations when kind of
exactly.
at the start of the season we probably would have written it off is
Yeah.
so encouraging in itself. I feel like we could probably chat forever. Like I have so many questions that I haven't actually had time to look at because there's so much, especially when I've got a guest that's so aligned with me that we'll talk about both the men's and women's
Yeah.
game. But I just want to end it with a play bench sell little game.
Yeah.
But this
Cool.
time I've only picked out two, and I've gone with what's the sort of strengths for both the men's and the women's side. So the first play bench sell we're going to do is based on, in arguably, in my opinion, the part of the pitch that is the strongest for the men's side, which is our defence. So I've gone with Saliba, Gabriel, and Mosquera. Who are you playing? Who are you benching? And who are you selling?
I'm playing Saliba. To me, I think Gabriel's had a brilliant season, but
Mm-hmm.
Saliba, in terms of natural talent, I think this season he's been one of our best players. But it's just gone under the radar because we just expect brilliance from him anyway. So I'm gonna play Saliba. I'm gonna bench Gabriel. Oh no, this is too hard. Because because Mascara has such a high ceiling. Yeah, I think I'll bench Gabriel because he's proven how important he is in both
Mm-hmm.
boxes. And I'd have to sell Mascara, but I think Mascara has such a high ceiling. You know, I think you watch him play, and I'm like, I see why we got you. And he can play left-sided centre back, right-sided, and full back. But I don't know. I think I would at this moment in time. I'd have to say sell if we're
Well,
doing them three.
we can always sell him and then get him back in the future,
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
we're
Buyback
sort of
clause. Honestly,
we're
he's
growing
brilliant.
him, kind of what's happening with like Ethan Waneri, like say that sort of
Exactly.
situation where you put them on loan somewhere else and then they come back. That would be
Yeah.
ideal. And I feel like it's interesting that you mentioned Saliba because whenever you're saying, okay, who are the key players, Ballon d'Or potentials, and if Arsenal get it over the line with the Premier League, who are we like congratulating, who are we praising? It tends to be David Raya, Gabriel, and Declan Rice. Like those are the three players
Yeah.
that people spotlight. And I think it's because of Gabriel's goal contributions as well. Like you can't
Yeah.
overlook that. But it is so interesting you saying that obviously Saliba, we just expect that from it. And it is, yeah,
Yeah.
it is
This,
so
do you know what it is for those players that you just mentioned? This is their standout season. Do you know what I mean?
interesting.
Like they've actually like just completely stood out. Whereas Saliba, like this is actually a standout season, but because we expect 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and we're used to seeing him play this comfortably, it's like, oh, this is just routine Saliba play. Where I'm like, if I'm being honest, I think he's been better than most centre backs. Like I would say he's been better than Mark Gay this season, in my personal opinion. I just think he's been so incredible. Like the way he defends, unbelievable. I think he's been so good, and it's going under the radar. And it's not even just about defending; it's about the passes forward, the way he just commands space. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's brilliant. Love him.
100%. I feel like we're just so lucky that we've got a debate around which of our centre backs is better
Yeah,
because they're both
exactly. It's perfect.
literally both
Yeah.
unreal. Moving to the next and the final play bench cell, it's more focused on the women's side and the attacking players because I feel like that is when you look at this season. Obviously, you mentioned the likes of Casey Reed just then and how she's a Williamson, but consistently we haven't actually had a centre back partnership like a Gabriel Saliba.
Yeah.
Williamson's been injured, then Reed's injured. Ruben Moyes stepped in. Catley's even meant to be a wing back, but she's come in centre back. Like it's sort of been a bit of a
Exactly.
mismatch. Whereas with the attacking players, that is a constant debate. That Edeval was almost too scared to play multiple
Yeah.
strikers or Russo in the false nines because it was just like this is too
Yeah.
much. So I thought this was kind of a good one. So we've got at play bench cell, Stina, Russo, and Smith,
Oh,
which is probably the toughest one.
that's so difficult. Stina, you're my favourite player, but I'd have to sell you. Your offside awareness, my queen, is crazy. Stina's my favourite women's
She
player,
was onside
but I'd
when I
have to.
mentioned, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'd have to sell her because I think the other two are better. Oh, this is so difficult because I think both are just too important to the team. I don't know, man. Why did you ask me this, Lucy? Flipping out.
I'm sorry, I should have ended the
The
episode like this.
start. Who would I start? Do you know what? I'm gonna start Alessia. I just think she's just too influential in games. Even when she doesn't score, her assisting, the way she gets around the box, she's such a handful. Her IQ levels are so high, and I'd have to bench Olivia. I think Olivia Stall is. I think she's absolutely brilliant. I was so happy we bought her. I just think obviously Alessia has more credit in the bank, and I do think Alessia is one of the, not to say that Olivia can't get there. I think Alessia is one of the best players in the world at the moment, and she's just killing it. So I think I'd have to bench Olivia. That was difficult, man, because it could
Yeah.
go either way. I think in terms of winning a Champions League, I think Olivia is going to be so important to how we play. Like you saw against Leon how every time she gets the ball, about four players went over to her. Do you know what I mean? She's almost like the women's version of Saka in sense. She's so influential in the game. She creates so much havoc. She's so smart as well. But yeah, I think I'll go Alessia for this one. I'll go Alessia start, Olivia bench, and I will sell Stina. Stina, I love you.
That's actually a mad comparison, but it makes so much sense of Saka and Smith because
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if they've got a target on their back where it's like, we need three defenders to like push us
exactly.
to the floor. Because, like you said, with
Exactly.
that Leon game at the weekend, obviously Smith got us the goal by capitalising on
Yeah,
Leon's mistake. But before that, I was like, she's been on the floor more times than she's actually been
yeah.
running. It just felt like they were just targeting her. I don't
Constantly
know.
fat. Her and Mariona are so important. You saw even Mariona. Every time she got the ball, there's four players around her, and that's because of how influential she is. And I think Olivia is the same in the sense of like, you know, if we compare her to Saka in a sense, Saka is always getting fouled. He's always being, getting the rough treatment because already if you let Saka get past you, it's an assist or a goal. Do you know what I mean? He's that influential, and I think Olivia is very similar in that. And as well, she's so technically brilliant. She's very tricky winger. Love her so
Yeah.
much. Give Liverpool another million. Give Liverpool another million now. Love her. She's
Honestly,
amazing.
give them all our money because I feel like she's worth every single
She's
penny.
worth every single penny.
And she's also, by putting her on the bench, she's also proven this season a lot because she's come on a lot for Caitlin Ford that she is that game
Exactly.
changer that you need. So I feel like if I had to say the sort of play bench self for that, I'd probably go with a similar vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a bit of a tricky way, a bit unfair for me
Yeah, that
in
was
the episode
difficult.
like that. But honestly, thank you so much for coming on and having this
No,
chat.
thank you for having me.
I feel like it's just been so nice to hear more about your journey, hear a bit of like the behind the scenes of how you're getting on with work and why you actually support Arsenal. And obviously your views on the season I feel like are quite realistic and hopefully have
Yeah.
manifested a lot. And there's a lot of Arsenal
Got praise.
fans that are on here that are listening going, okay, actually, you've sort of restored my faith in Arsenal. Like this is going well. This can carry on going
Yeah.
well. But yeah, I really
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on. And for anyone that's watching, make sure you get involved in the comments, say your thoughts on this episode as a whole. I'll be back on Tuesday with a solo episode and then obviously another fan episode, trying to really build up the hype with lots of fans coming on right now because as we've just discussed for the last hour, it's been very tense recently.
Yeah,
And
it
I feel like it's
has.
not going to ease up anytime soon.